So on February 14th, 2020, and we all remember 2020, it was a year that everybody said, well, it's going to get better. We started having a conversation before that about, well, we had multiple conversations, but we talked about the strange and the unusual, monsters and ghosts and government conspiracies.
All the fun stuff.
That was how we killed time at work.
Yeah. That's how we got through things.
And that was about the time I started listening to podcasts. I'd been listening to podcasts for a while, and I'm not sure who first said it, but one of us was like, we should record these conversations.
I'm sure it was you, because I can say truthfully, I knew what a podcast was, but I think up to that point, I had never listened to one.
Well, I took inspiration from Kevin Smith, at least, who said, well, if you and your friends are having these conversations, other people are probably interested in them as well.
I remember you saying that well.
And so, and I will say reluctantly, I was pulled into this. Eric is more of a public speaker type, friendlier than me. We recorded our first couple episodes. They were rough. If you listen to them now, they were like 20 minutes long.
I won't use the word I'm ashamed of them, but I'm disappointed in them.
Well, I almost feel like I'd like to redo some of those early episodes the way we do things now.
Yeah.
But, we talked about goblins and we talked about giants. And here we are, 200 episodes later.
200 episodes.
6 years. So if you do the math for a supposedly weekly podcast...
We missed a few.
We are short a little bit. And even if it was a bi-weekly podcast, we'd still be a little bit short. But this is our 200th episode. And so we are going to talk about Nightmares on the Lost Highway.
From a child born into this world, we are taught what to believe. Closed-minded we become, fearful to be deceived. Still we desire to know what lies beyond that locked door. The art of the storyteller, conjuring tales of legend and lore. History hidden, lost knowledge, things forgotten and the unknown. These are the things that direct us and will set the tone. Welcome, friends, to another episode of Nightmares on the Lost Highway.
When we talked about what we were going to do special for this episode, we thought we should revisit old episodes, find new stories that roll into older episodes.
Some new updates.
And I think Eric and I both thought that would be easy.
Yeah, we were wrong.
It turns out when you spend a couple of weeks researching a topic and writing an episode, you really do get a lot of the story. And so
we might be a bit too thorough.
Yeah, to revisit old stories, like some things were a little easier than others. And of course, with the things going on in the world today, I was able to touch on some topics that were familiar. But yeah, it turned out to be a little harder after, again, like I said, the way we do this, we do these hour-long episodes, we really hit a lot of the stuff that's out there. And so...
And let me add, Bill and I were just talking before we went on live. 6 years ago, I mean, AI was in existence, but it is way more evident and apparent when doing research today. So when we used to, or at least me, I don't want to speak for Bill. I know he uses Reddit and he uses kind of some different aspects. I'm more of a YouTube visual type person to get research. But no matter where you go right now, like if you wanted to search a topic, I almost guarantee at least 50% of what you pull up is bogus AI, six-fingered, weird generated stuff.
For what we do with this, especially when you're looking at pictures now, you can't trust any image.
No.
The videos are getting better and better. They're still... You can usually pick them out, but still, there are definitely videos where it's like, oh, is that real? Is that not? My kid all the time, I'll see something on YouTube and he'll be like, Dad, that's AI.
Yep.
And I'd like to think I'm pretty tech savvy, but
And
I get caught.
Bill's called me out on a couple of things too, because I was like, "Oh my gosh, Bill, look at this!
Yeah.
This is going to be a great story." And he's like,
It's not.
"That's totally AI."
Well, and I've teased you about it before. My favorite is the movie trailers that you'll be like,
Oh,
"Hey, I saw they're making
I used
another
to fall
whatever."
for those.
And I'll be
Yeah.
like, "No, man, that's not
Yeah.
real."
Rocky's coming
Yeah.
back in Balboa 57.
So again, when we were talking about this and talking about revisiting old episodes, really with what's in the news right now, I'm going to just jump right in. I actually have a story that combines two old episodes here.
All right, that sounds interesting.
UFOs and the Government, episode 11 from August 11th, 2020, and Shadow People, episode 22 from October 4th, 2020. So, former Air Force technician Adrian Reister was stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri between 2003 and 2007. I like this story because
It's Missouri.
because it's close to home. So in his role there, he would guard, maintain, and move nuclear weapons. Now, he claimed that he saw glowing balls hovering over the base one night, and that they seemed to have an active interest in our nuclear weapons programs. One night, while guarding the nuclear warheads at the base, he saw a glowing ball levitating just above the tree line at the woods. When the transport team arrived to provide security for the nuclear weapon, the ball seemed to bounce in the sky before it headed north and then bounced up one more time and shot straight up out of sight.
Now, how big was this glowing sphere or ball? Was it like a
it didn't
beach
really-
ball, basketball?
Didn't really state
Didn't
how
state?
big he thought it
Okay,
was.
I was just
in these.
curious.
Well, shortly after that, he noticed another glowing ball that was yellowish white in color. He says he knew these objects couldn't have been any planes. He was in the Air Force, serving on an Air Force base. He knew all, the planes that they use pretty well.
Be familiar with them, yeah.
So he knew it wasn't any aircraft that we were using. He said the second one actually sort of floated out of where it was and then made a right angle turn and just shot off. So, but he also said he had a frightening encounter with a shadow person in the summer of 2006 while he was maintaining a dummy practice bomb during the night shift. Now, the first time that night, he was working, with this dummy bomb when he heard footsteps. Now, they didn't sound like combat boots. Combat boots are heavy.
Have a very distinctive sound.
Yeah, it sounded like somebody walking barefoot. Now, after he'd heard these footsteps a couple times, he decided he was going to go find out what was going on and basically turned a corner, and there he encountered something that he couldn't explain. In his own words, I saw what I can't really describe as other than a black mass in the shape of a person standing 6 feet tall. Not really a shadow, but something that was slightly blurry and didn't reflect any light. Now, of course, this being a nuclear base, it was incredibly secured, being well guarded at all times by highly trained security personnel and monitored by advanced security systems. Basically, it'd be impossible for any unauthorized person to gain access to the areas where he was working in without being detected in some way.
Right.
So to run into a humanoid,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a person. It wasn't somebody
It's
who
not
wasn't supposed to be
It's
there.
not like you're in a open street alley or behind a building. Yeah,
they didn't just bump into somebody. They didn't just wander in.
Yeah, pizza delivery guy.
Yeah. Speaking of, we did have that incident at our old job that was,
Oh yes.
we had the top secret area you couldn't go
confidential.
into.
Got to scan your
Yeah.
badge to get beyond any door.
Somebody let the pizza guy in to deliver a pizza one night.
The funniest part about that story, I wasn't directly involved, but I was right after that. It was a security guard who allowed the pizza delivery person in there.
I bet they didn't work there after
I
that.
don't think they held the job down much longer after that. But well, again, when Bill came with this idea, because as I said, we talked about, what can we do that's kind of special for our 200th? One of the ones that popped into my mind, and no, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but it was a follow-up on the Titanic. Now, of course, a lot of people out there might be saying, let me guess, the update is it's still in frigid waters at the bottom of the ocean.
Still down there.
It's still there. Well, that is one version of an update. But we talked about the Titanic in particular in episode 33. That was back on January 24th, way back in 2021. And while I was trying to find something new, a new discovery, some new scientific analysis tool, I wanted to get something new on the Titanic. Because let's face it, that is a Victorian age story that I think will be with us in our history forever. And that could have played out so many different ways and probably been long forgotten had it not played out in the very tragic way that it did. So I found out that there is a gentleman by the name of Anthony Geffen. He actually has a new documentary, and it is entitled Digital Mapping of the Titanic. This actually came out in 2025. He did it for the National Geographic. This, again, just kind of goes to reiterate, to prove that the world has this massive obsession with this unsinkable ship, that dreadful night of April 15th, 1912. Now, in Geffen's project, it took several years, but he actually went to the site at the bottom of the ocean to film the Titanic in special-made subs over a 2-year period, and they captured some of the most astounding 3D images. Well, when they returned back to the surface, just a few months into this, the way I understand the story, National Geographic was contacted, they found out about it, so they wanted to learn a little bit more. That kind of mini project launched into a challenge, a what if. What if you could provide this 3D rendering in a life-size, full 360, interior, exterior, by floor, inch by inch grid, and then make it where people could essentially, it's like the holodeck of the Star Trek. You could walk through the debris fields, walk through the walls, push aside doors, walls to scan and look for details. This sounded like something right out of a sci-fi novel, but it is very real. Over that 2-year project, and his multiple little robotic cameras that snaked their way through windows and portals, filming the interior as well as the exterior of the ship. And it enabled anyone, not just the rich, to be able to essentially tour the Titanic without all the fear of death. I mean, the dangerous aspect that we're probably reminded of a story that didn't end so well with a small submarine and several people that lost their life.
I mean, if you're going to spend that kind of money, you should probably use it to make sure your submarine is safe.
Yes. So I haven't watched the special yet. I want to. This is definitely on the top of my list. But I did go in and watch some clips. And it is providing scientists, school teachers, all walks of life of people to basically go in and analyze like it's never been done before. Because even if you dive to the bottom of the ocean, obviously you can't gain access to a lot of those areas where a little, like maybe a 12-inch by 12-inch floating robot camera could get to. And already they are starting to put together new information about that dreadful night in 1912. For example, one of the stories that was passed down, I believe they found it in a diary, and some of the people that survived told the story that there was some of the mechanics on the ship, maybe even some of the engineers, that fully accepted the fate of death to go back down under the water, again, frigid waters, and adjust the gas lines to keep the lights and the beacon blinking lights on longer, which ultimately saved several hundred lives had those lights went out. And they found, literally by looking at those, not necessarily the gauge aspects, but the position of the lever of flow, they found proof that more than likely happened, because there was no reason for a lot of these gauges to be balanced the way they were and turned and various different stages of open and off. And so they're already kind of finding some of that. And again, it's not just the elite. It's not the richest. It's not just scholarly college people. From what I understand, this is almost like possibly going to turn into a touring site where they can bring the Titanic, possibly different colleges or different towns or whatever. I just thought that was, for once, a very good purpose for new technology. So I wanted to share that story.
I mean, in a way, they're filming movies and stuff using that. Well, like The Mandalorian, they didn't use a lot of sets for The Mandalorian. They had like this room that they worked in, and it was like projected, and so
now the Cuyahoga Hills up in Illinois, the big mounds. Did you say you've went there since they've?
I've never been.
Okay, we did a podcast on that as well. I don't remember the episode or which one we talked about it, but this technology was being used there apparently. And now, as a tourist, you can walk through and actually see for lack of a better term, a holographic image of Indians grinding the corn and using different spots that actually do exist. They're kind of overlaid over them. I think that'd be really cool too.
Well, on April 3rd, 2022, we released an episode about sea monsters. And I think we talked about various different sea monsters, different stories. I think we talked about like the Kraken and things like that.
Megalodon.
Well, Megalodon was a whole separate
It was
episode.
a standalone, but I think we surely touched on Megalodon.
So since then, I've stumbled upon a couple of articles with a strange, theme. And it turns out giant lobsters apparently used to be a concern for fishermen around the world.
Giant lobsters.
From an article in the San Francisco Examiner in the January 17th, 1895 edition comes the 1892 story of a diver off the coast of Newfoundland. He said he was grabbed and nearly drowned by a gigantic lobster, which stood about 4 or 5 feet tall, so from its legs to its back.
Gosh.
And was at least twice that long in length. So you're talking, maybe 10 feet long.
10, 12 foot long, yeah.
He said the monster drug him into its underwater nook, and there he struggled with the gigantic crustacean until he was finally rescued by other members of his dive team who dove down after him when he failed to return to the surface when he was expected.
Wow.
They confirmed his story, saying they found him in the grips of this giant lobster, and they had to cut off one of its arms.
I was going to say, can you imagine the claw on that thing?
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. The journalist reported that stories of giant lobsters were kind of common in this area, and that after particularly violent storms, the shells of enormous lobsters would be found washed up on the beaches in the area.
Can you imagine pulling something like that? I don't think it'd fit in a lobster trap, but maybe on top of a lobster trap as you're trying to pull that thing in.
There was another similar story from 1895 when fishermen returned from Nova Scotia with a story of a giant lobster that attacked 2 fishermen while they were setting lines. Their story seemed to confirm tales from the Passamaquoddy of a giant lobster that would occasionally rise to the surface, attack a fisherman's boat, and then seize a man in its claws and drag him underwater to devour him.
Wow.
Now, stories told of a 6-foot lobster that had been seen many times, and the witnesses in question had been on their own fishing boat when they heard a shout. Looking over, they saw a smaller fishing boat with something crawling into it from the ocean.
Oh, gosh.
Now, at first, they thought maybe a man had fallen overboard and he was trying to get back in the boat. As they got closer, they realized this was in fact a giant lobster. Apparently, they had been reeling in their catch. And
here we go to that, yeah.
Yeah, this lobster had followed it up to the boat. This lobster had seized the right arm of one of the poor fishermen inside, who kept swinging an oar at the beast, trying to get it to release him. Another boat approached the smaller fishing vessel, and one of the men took a swing at the lobster's head with a heavy hatchet.
Oof.
He struck a glancing blow, which caused the creature to release the man in the boat, and then turn its attention to this new boat.
I mean, they're essentially armored. Yeah.
It failed to grab hold of any of the men in the new boat, and after one of the guys jabbed it in the back with a pickaxe, it let go of the second boat and sank out of sight before anyone else could attack it. When the man who had been grabbed by the lobster was taken to the hospital afterwards, the bones in his wrists were broken, and the flesh on the lower part of his arm was essentially shredded. They said he was in pretty bad shape. So,
like, yeah, I got a pet pit bull. Yeah, well, you ain't got nothing. I got a pet 10-foot lobster.
When we went to the beach one time, we did some crab fishing, and they tell you got to be careful, stay away from the pincers.
Oh, yeah.
I got nipped, and I mean, even a little crab that's like the size of your palm, it drew blood.
Oh, so I can't imagine one of those things. It'd easily be able to take off fingers, maybe a hand.
Well,
or something
that big, You figure you'd be lucky if you walked away with your arm.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, I'll touch base on another episode we did on H.H. Holmes, episode 47 that we recorded back November 14th, 2021. For those of you who may not remember, H.H. Holmes is a steeped, misunderstood, diabolical
I wouldn't
serial
say misunderstood.
killer.
The guy was a murderer.
Well, okay, true to that.
Unless you're about to give us something new.
Well, at the time when we recorded that, there was some rumors going around to possibly tie H.H. Holmes to Jack the Ripper,
Yeah, I remember that.
saying that it could be the same person because the Jack the Ripper ordeals and the killings just kind of stopped. And it was within, I want to say months, 6 months or less, in the Chicago area, boom, this kind of killing starts up again. It was just kind of maybe a copycat or coincidence. But at the time when we recorded that, there was a lot of information out there floating that, hey, these two people could actually be the same. I believe it was a grandson of H.H. Holmes, even had a little TV series he did for a while. There was a documentary, and they found what I felt was enough to cloudy the water, but possibly tie the two back. Now, fast forward 5 years, I think that is kind of faded out of the glory. I don't think that connection is legit anymore. Now, if you'd asked me back in 2021, I would have probably said yes. But H.H. Holmes doesn't need Jack the Ripper to hold him up. This guy was diabolical. And again, just to give you some of the tidbits, I invite you to go back and listen to the other episode, as we do with all the ones we're covering tonight. He designed what they called the Murder Castle there in Chicago. This was during the time of the Chicago World's Fair back in 1893, which of course pumped a new volume of population into Chicago for quite a period of time because it was the World's Fair. So it brought people from multiple countries and everything to come in for multiple weeks, if not months. And he had worked his way up, acquiring property, doing different jobs, firing different construction crews. So nobody knew exactly what his end game plan was, but he designed this. It's something right out of a horror Halloween movie of the Murder Castle. It had secret passages where he could walk in behind and look through like spy holes into rooms at people that he had staying there. There was gas chambers that he had rigged in bedrooms where he could, fumigate people, lock people in there who had went thinking they were just getting a place to lay their head for the night, like a motel. And then he could watch safely from these secret passages, time people, how long it would take them to die, what they had to go through, documenting all this to a point of like a physician or a scientist really wanting to understand the final chapters, the final moments before death. Even went to a point to have, he took up a hobby of firing china and clay pottery, which give him essentially a kiln, which could be used as an incinerator in the basement.
I would say maybe he didn't pick up a hobby of making pottery, but instead use that as a cover.
Okay. Well, I found out that for the last couple years, there has been an interest to make a full-blown movie about H.H. Holmes, and in particular, the World's Fair of Chicago, that era. The movie is to be titled The Devil in the White City. And we've got two major people that are absolutely involved. They just give the green light that they're going to start this. They haven't released a release date or anything. It's still very on in its early stages. But Leonardo DiCaprio came forward. Apparently, he has always kind of followed that story, had a fascination with it. And Leonardo DiCaprio, of course, from the Titanic and many, many movies, wants to play the role of H.H. Holmes. He also, from what I understand, it's still very limited information, is forking out part of his money towards the movie. The other big name that is backing the project is Martin Scorsese. Has done all sorts of films, go on about him. But I think with the two of them at the helm of this project, it's going to be a very interesting one. They have promised it is going to be true to historical, his life as much as they can. It's definitely going to have that dark, gritty, that real life horror film into a Victorian age of innocence where the devil is said to live right next door. Obviously he would rise in infamy as one of the most prolific serial killers of that area, or of that era, and also the United States. Whether or not he was related to Jack the Ripper, I don't know if they'll touch upon that. Again, I think that's kind of faded out.
Yeah, I think they pretty much ruled that out.
Yeah.
Most people, I think, have, and I don't remember who it is, but I think they've settled on, who Jack the Ripper was.
Yeah. I saw some stuff, actually, and I thought about including it, but I decided not to, and to go with H.H. Holmes.
Well, in episode 31, we talked about the infamous, one of the most famous UFO crashes of all time, Roswell.
Roswell. You mean the weather balloon?
The weather balloon.
The weather balloon.
This was December 20th, 2020. A video has surfaced recently claiming to show debris and actual bodies recovered from the alleged UFO crash in New Mexico in 1947. The 22-minute video was uploaded to the National Archives on September 17th, 2025, and quickly went viral due to the contents and their possible revelation. Now, it starts with the book The Roswell Report, Fact versus Fiction in the New Mexico Desert, and it ends with a black and white shot of a crater littered with metallic debris. And possibly, if you really look at the picture tucked away in the details, a small body that could be a gray alien, that classic gray alien.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this particular image has triggered speculation that this might be the first real images of the crash site to be seen by the public. Of course, many point out that the image does seem to match what Major Jesse Marcel described when he talked about the crash site.
Originally, before it was changed to a weather balloon.
Now, also, in December of 2025, a mysterious fire erupted at Hangar 84 of the Roswell Air Center, a site long linked to the crash and allegedly to be the site that stored the bodies and the debris afterward. Now, while firefighters were on the scene dealing with the blaze, witnesses saw a large explosion, following which the firefighters backed out of the building and did an all-call county-wide response, which requests all county fire departments to respond to the incident. No injuries were reported, but the cause of the fire and the potentially destroyed objects within are unknown. One Redditor wrote about the incident, "Well, isn't that super interesting? And oddly timed coincidence. That right as the public is starting to get all curious about our past, a weird fire breaks out for no reason at Hangar 84. Another wrote, in April of last year, 2024, a fire was reported at Roswell Airfield. Tonight, another fire has taken place. The timing is suspect, to say the least."
Yeah, Bill and I talked a lot on that episode.
Yeah.
We grew up with that being probably the tall tale UFO story of all time.
It was a UFO crash. That's what we knew.
Yes.
Now, we'd all heard the weather balloon cover story, but it was a UFO crash. Everything you ever looked at, every book, every time you saw it on TV, it was a UFO crash.
Not anymore.
When we did the research for that episode, balloon incident.
Yeah.
It was all weather balloon.
I think we struggled to even find the verbiage UFO anywhere. Flying saucer. It was like all scrubbed.
Again, considering that the first release to the public from the military was that they had recovered a flying saucer.
Yeah.
Seems weird that you can't find any reference to it.
Well, I did one also on time travelers. And we've actually done several different versions on time travelers.
Madman Mike Markham was my favorite. And he's from, here in Missouri.
Yeah, he's halfway local. I love the John Teeter story.
Yeah,
myself.
that one's crazy.
That was insane. But we actually did one just simply titled Time Travelers. And that was episode 68 back in April 9th of 2022. Now, continually, people come forward with photographs and showing what they believe is proof of an item or a person being from the future. We covered several of those in these episodes, but especially episode 68. I think we actually did one here last year about things out of time, out of place.
Out of time and out of place.
Kind of similar to that. But, an example might be a Victorian lady in the late 1890s holding a device that looks like a flip cell phone up to her ear while walking down a busy New York street. And again, that footage is probably one of the ones that you'll find if you do a search. It's been around for a long, long, long time. You go today to our earlier point, and AI, it's so hard to tell what's real and what's not. But like that is an old one. And they actually did some deep dives on that. Apparently, there was a device about that time frame, and I'm referring to the Victorian lady holding what looks like a flip-top cell phone, had an enhanced hearing device for people who were deaf. Oddly, it looks a lot like a flip cell phone.
I have heard that a lot of these pictures that show things that look like they're out of place, the explanation a lot of times is it's just not a well-known object that existed at the time.
Yes. And like this, I want to say the technology was maybe in existence for 3 years or less. And it was kind of in that age of snake oil salesman and gadgetry, quack gadgetry is what it's referred to. But again, that hearing device would have only been able to be afforded by the elite. Well, where is this lady walking the streets of New York in her finest Victorian? I think she might have been able to afford one like that. To Bill's point, it was an item that was around, but didn't take off very well, wasn't well known. And definitely, if you look at that photo or it's a video that they've kind of restored and enhanced and tried to get all the detail, I can see how it looks like a cell phone. But then again, we've talked about on different episodes, the power of the human mind and the brain trying to reason what we are seeing.
Well, it's even pareidolia, where you want to see a face where there's not a face.
Yeah.
The human mind looks for patterns. It looks for things it recognizes.
That's how we see a dragon in the clouds or a bunny rabbit or, whatever. It's kind of caveman-ish to put our body at ease so that we know what it is. Might be scary, but I think that's better than not knowing what is something that looks scary. And I mentioned another one that we talked about was John Titor. He claimed to have traveled back in the time, met his parents before his birth to prepare them for kind of like things to come. His grandfather was involved with some of the early computer stuff. He was talking about using old tech and a certain model computer. He went on the internet and he made diagrams that people laughed at first. And then later on went back and we've designed things off of John Titor's sketches. So who knows? But one thing I thought was very interesting, one of the things that popped up in my search, it says the world of 2026, time travel. We may be a bit closer, or should I say they may make it possible. Who am I referring to, you may ask? Well, AI, artificial intelligence. An online article written in May 24th, 2025 actually says, by accelerating physics research, simulating new theories, and discovering novel new materials using them in ways that has never been used, AI may actually bring us closer to understanding whether time travel is physically possible or not. And if it is, AI could help design and control the mechanisms required to make it real. So, you get a phone call, Bill. Government agency. They've reached out to you once again. Top secret, classified. AI has designed a way to travel into time. Now, you're going to trust AI.
No, I'm not.
They're going to send you somewhere, and you're going to trust that they're going to keep tabs on you and bring you back safely. I thought that was pretty ironic.
That's a gamble I'm not ready to take.
yeah, but I can definitely see that happening. But I thought that was an interesting twist. I don't think we dove into a whole lot of one that it could have, things that we see now could have just simply been technology that had been forgotten, or, we just misplaced it. We're trying to identify what we think it looks like. But then with the AI and the whole AI scare of the generation, which I have to admit is starting to get a little bit alarming. My gosh, this is Skynet kind of stuff. We just release AI and let it guide us to time travel.
My job's really been pushing AI to the point where, I have access to ChatGPT on my work computer. If I get stuck with a question, my boss is immediately like, well, what does ChatGPT tell us?
See, I think that sounds so strange.
I sat through a whole hour-long training on how best to implement AI. And the guy's first suggestion was don't Google search anything.
Yeah.
Use your AI, because it'll take all the stuff you would have to read through and summarize it for you. I'll admit, I've used a little bit of AI to help me with my D&D game.
I have as well.
If I'm having a hard time coming up with an encounter, hey, give me an idea for 10 Underdark encounters or something like that.
Right.
Or if I want to stat a magic item and I'm like, I don't really hey, tell me, give me an idea, and it's a handy tool.
Yeah.
But that's all it should be. But I think people are
they're trusting
past
it
tool
way too much.
And yeah, they're giving it too much respect.
A little off topic, but Sarah and I were watching one of the new episodes of The Pit, which refers to it's a medical drama show that it takes place in Pittsburgh, and one of the doctors has come in, and they have an AI version to help doctors stay up on basically updating their file.
Well, they say AI is really good with medical stuff. Like it's really
good.
Let
me pause you there. In the show,
it screwed something up.
They have a guy that comes in and AI does its normal scans. It misses the fact that he had an appendectomy for whatever reason. Just missed it. They take him to surgery, and there is a medicine that they're giving him, but because he doesn't have an appendectomy, an appendix anymore, it's very detrimental to him. And had the doctor not reviewed the files, could have possibly killed the guy.
I have heard that it's really good at diagnosing things, though, because its real strength is pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see, like, every time we've seen these symptoms, it's led to this diagnosis. I have heard that it's good at that.
I've used it a little bit because I write a lot of historical stuff, local history and stuff. I use it almost to double check myself, and I go back and I kind of audit it.
You have to audit it. That was the thing they taught us in our training.
Yes. And I will be like, okay, yeah, they got that right. They got that right. No, that's totally wrong. And then there'll be usually like some little tidbit, and it's like, I don't know about this. And I might go research that and find something I did not know.
I was trying to design a creature for the One Ring RPG, based off Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was, I really wasn't sure how to balance it. And so I just asked ChatGPT, whatever AI, Copilot, whatever one it was.
Yeah.
Hey, give me this. I'm looking for this kind of creature. And it combined the monster stat block of like a 5e Dungeons and Dragons monster and a One Ring Dungeons and Dragons, or a One Ring monster. So it had, some stats that were appropriate for for Dungeons and Dragons, and then some for that.
Kind of bled over.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, in November, on the 8th of 2020, we talked about modern dinosaurs. I remember, I'm a monster guy, and dinosaurs are like they were real life monsters, right? I stumbled upon, I'd saved a couple links to the Partridge Creek monster. Now, there were a group of hunters tracking moose near Partridge Creek in the Yukon, up in Canada. And this area was known for its salt deposits. And so moose and caribou would come to that area to lick the salt. Now, as they came over a hill, they saw 3 big moose down in the valley below. And, of course, they crept up. And before any of them could get a shot, one of the bulls in this group let out a really loud bellow and then just crashed off into the forest. And the other two followed close behind, like they were scared. Something had frightened them. Now, the hunters went down to approach the area where the moose had been, and they found these gigantic tracks in the snow and saw evidence of something dragging a tail behind it. And it's something big. They said some of the tail marks were like 16 inches across where the tail had drug through. The footprints were massive.
Good Lord.
Well, they wanted to know what this was. They followed these tracks for about 5 or 6 miles down the banks of Partridge Creek before they disappeared into this rocky gorge, and they couldn't follow it anymore. Well, later, they gathered up a big hunting party. They were going to go find this thing. Whatever it was, they were going to find it. And early the next morning, they set off, and they searched all day. They went all up and down the creek. They went all through the woods. Nothing. So that night, they were setting up their camp on a cliff that overlooked Partridge Creek when they heard the sound of falling stones down in the ravine below. Now, before anyone could investigate, they heard a roar, just this echoing, massive roar that went through the valley. Well, now these guys are, concerned. They get down on their bellies, they grab their rifles, and they crawl up to the edge of the cliff. And across the valley on the other side, trying to scramble up the valley wall, they see this enormous gray-black creature trying to climb up. And as it's trying to climb up, with its legs are kicking stones down and they're tumbling down the valley. Now, they said this creature had to be 50 feet long from the tip of its nose to the end of its tail, and that its back would have been 18 feet above the ground. So this is a big creature. And said on its nose, there was a rhinoceros-like horn. The hide, they said, was like that of a wild boar covered in thick bristles. Now, they watched it for about 10 minutes, and apparently at some point the creature realized it wasn't going to make it up, and so it just went back down into the valley, tromping down on 2 legs, and they said it moved with surprising agility. Now later...
So it went down on 2 legs, did you say?
It went down into the valley on 2 legs.
So it was standing erect.
Like a T-Rex.
Okay.
Yeah. Now later, one of the hunting party said he had seen the monster a second time, racing over the frozen Partridge Creek with a caribou held in its mouth. He guessed the monster must have been moving 10 miles an hour or more. These stories were so well believed that Hugh Grosvenor, the Duke of Westminster, had planned a hunting trip to the Yukon. He was going to come with a great big old steel cage. He was going to catch this thing.
Gosh.
Now, of course, his plans were canceled by the beginning of World War I, and he never got to go on his hunting party. Now, an unidentified man posted on the World Wildlife Foundation's website that he had an encounter with a strange creature in Alaska in September of 1999. And they had stopped at a hotel in Fairbanks, not too awfully far from Partridge Creek in the Yukon, as the crow flies. He said they were getting out of their vehicle. They were getting ready to go into the hotel room. I think his son was with him. He was sleeping in the back of the van. It was his sister's van. She had a couple of dogs, and they were getting out, and the dogs were going to go do their business. And so the dogs started acting really nervous, like really strange, really scared. They didn't want to pee. They were kind of looking around and sniffing. And the man and the sister, they just, they're like, well, it's kind of a weird... so they grabbed the dogs and they got back in the van and just give it a minute. Maybe they're just scared. Maybe they're nervous. So they get back in. Well, as they're sitting there in the van trying to figure out what to do, why the dogs are acting weird, this young couple pulls up, a couple rooms down. They got out of their car, unloaded some things from the trunk, left it open as they took the things in. Now the couple came back out to get the stuff out of the trunk, and the wife froze. These 2 people are watching them, The wife freezes. She points. She's looking in the direction of the van. She starts screaming and pointing at the van. Well, the husband looks up, and as he's looking up, she takes off running for the room. Her screams, he's trying to figure out. And she's yelling for him. They said you could see her waving him on as she's running for the room. Well, he looks in the direction she was looking at, and according to the later report, he saw something come out of the woods, moving with pretty good clip. And he turned and ran for the hotel room as fast as he could, went through the door, slammed it behind him. The family in the van, during this time, they begin to hear this rhythmic thudding on the ground. And the ground shakes. They can feel the van shake a little bit.
Jurassic Park.
Exactly. And something moves in behind the van. It's so big they can see it in both the side mirrors, the rear view mirror. It blocks out the light coming in through the back windshield. They look behind them and they see what he said could only be a dinosaur. He said it looked like the drawings of an Allosaurus. He said it was 30 foot tall. It looked extremely curious. he described it as a polar Allosaurus. I don't know if he's describing the coloring or whatever, but yeah, this dinosaur, he says it's looking directly into the back of the van where his kid is sleeping.
Oh.
Well, he's hoping and praying, like nobody move. He's thinking Jurassic Park.
Stay asleep, little Timmy.
Yeah, nobody move. The dogs are like whimpering and stuff. They're trying to calm the dogs down. Like if these dogs go berserk, finally, the creature lost interest, kind of snuffled one time, moved back into the forest and disappeared. He described it as exactly like the scene in Jurassic Park.
Now, probably 1999, I'm assuming parking lots, asphalt or concrete, so probably no chance for tracks or...
They, I guess they left and came back the next day. There was no evidence of anything going on, and said, like, strangely enough, that other couple had clearly stayed the night, but said they pulled in and they said, like, this couple was getting ready to check out. They wouldn't leave the room until they had opened the window, like they had the curtains wide open, and like stared out for a long time and like looking along the tree.
Coast is clear.
So yeah, like, but
I would
no,
think something
no
of
tracks.
that size would have left, at least a trampled down area in
think.
the woods,
You
of
would
the trees. Huh. Very interesting. Well, I went back to visit, at the time, probably one of our hottest, most hit episodes. That was episode 117 back on May 20th of 2023. For those of you who might remember that is Jameson Bachman, the worst roommate ever. This one, for whatever reason, it became one of my favorites.
It's such a weird story,
and it's
it's
like
bizarre,
factual,
and it's
true.
real.
I mean, there's court cases, there's police files. You can't deny it. But like I said, it got us some pretty good click rates from all you listeners. We appreciate that. But the story of Jameson Bachman, he was basically just an individual. But the things this guy did up and down the East Coast to his roommates it left me speechless. I invite you to go back and listen to it. It is amazing. It is astonishing. It is appalling. It is everything. This guy kind of comes in like he's your best friend, your best buddy. He comes in when people are struggling to pay their rent, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's God sent from heaven. And maybe for the first couple weeks he is, and then he starts like raiding your food. He brings pets in the house. He doesn't clean up after them, locks himself, barricades himself in his room. You go to find that while you went to work that day, that he's been in your room going through your stuff. It's crazy. It's a crazy story. But I found out that, this particular story, that part of that was a serial squatter from Elkins Park who lived with Alex Miller. Now, Alex is one of the roommates that unfortunately crossed paths with Jameson Bachman. There is a new featured Netflix series at that time. This was back in 2023, and it was simply titled Worst Roommate Ever. Jameson Bachman was actually one episode out of that season. That's where I found out about it. Again, I'm more of a visual person. I love to go find stuff like that. But they had so much packed in that one episode that we did a full podcast. Well, now they're going to do a full-blown movie. And sounds like it's going to come out maybe through Netflix again. But they're focusing only on Jameson Bachman and only with a deep dive in what the whole ordeal with Alex Miller was with Jameson Bachman. Now, ironically, I went into this looking for updates, looking for new things. And I thought, knowing Jameson Bachman, the way I got to know him doing research, I think they did finally arrest him and lock him up. But I thought, in that story we touched upon, that wasn't the first time, that wasn't the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 20th time he's done this. So I thought maybe if he had got out of jail, what's the old boy up to these days? Is he still up to his old tricks? But I'd come across this movie, so it kind of diverted. But back to this aspect that's coming out. Paul Feig, the director-producer behind, he did by Bridesmaids, A Simple Favor, a few other movies, is planning to bring this true story to the big screens as well as possibly Netflix. They haven't decided if it's going to be a Netflix exclusive or produced by Netflix and put on the big screen with Blumhouse production. And they're going to dive in even deeper than what anyone, I think, ever has with this horrific, intriguing story. And I can only imagine a full-length movie, how it could add more to this, because I was just speechless at times doing research. So I thought that was worthy of an update mention for so many people that seem to like that story.
Well, my last story today, I'm going to go back and revisit the UFOs and the government. You know, when we did that episode, David Grush was testifying in Congress.
Oh, yeah.
About all the things he knew. And there's been a lot of speculation about his bona fides and whether he's real, whether he's making it all
Is he
up.
just portraying or saying what they want put out there?
There's a podcast that Eric and I think Eric watches the videos, and I listen to the podcast, but the Y-Files.
Oh, love it.
And they've really been, you know, when a member of the intelligence community comes forward to tell you what's going on, they have an agenda.
Yes, yes. Which, by the way, if you don't follow the Y-Files, if you're listening to us, I strongly suggest Y-Files. Absolutely love it. You can find it on YouTube. It's actually got a podcast. Launched a new series, The Basement.
Yeah.
Which is more of just
him and those are the interviews.
Yeah, the interviews where he
those.
invites people to the basement and they just talk. And then, of course, there's the fish, the co-host, which just side-slap
that threw me at first. So, British documentarian Mark Christopher Lee, which, if that was my name, I'd just drop the Mark, just be Christopher Lee. But he made the claim in mid-January that Donald Trump was preparing to deliver what he referred to as, quote, the most important announcement in human history. Now, President Trump was going to make this announcement during the 2026 World Cup, when millions of people would have their focus turned to America. Now, Lee claimed that Washington insiders have confirmed to him that the president had already written a speech to reveal that mankind has made first contact with aliens, and that the address would be made to the nation on July 8th. Now, that's an important date. That would be 79 years to the day after the U.S. Army told people it had recovered a flying disc in Roswell, New Mexico.
AKA weather balloon.
Now, of course, this comes at a time where Trump's been facing pressure from whistleblowers and researchers to disclose what the government knows about UFOs and aliens. Lee said, sources close to the Trump administration tell me the speech is complete and ready. This is not a drill. This is not speculation. This is the real deal, and the date is no coincidence. Now, Lee's claims align with those made by retired U.S. Air Force Major David Grush, who has also claimed that Trump could soon reveal that the government has alien remains and has been visited by UFOs numerous times. He's claimed that the president has been fully briefed on crashed alien spacecraft, the existence of multiple alien races, the origins of those beings, and their intentions here on Earth. Now, earlier this month, Obama was on a podcast where he was asked about aliens and UFOs, and he told host Brian Tyler Cohen, they're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy and they hid it from the president of the United States. Now, when reporters asked President Trump about these comments, he replied, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information, which makes it sound like maybe we do have that information. Now, Obama did try to clarify, maybe walk back his statements later, stating that he had not seen evidence of aliens and that,
I
quote,
didn't really say that.
Yeah, statistically, the universe is so vast that the odds are good that there's life out there. Well, just days ago, Trump posted on Truth Social, based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. Bethany Stevens, NASA spokesperson, responded to Trump's comments on X later, saying, we continue to embrace President Trump's open, science commitment as an agency. We have fostered open science since our inception so that the public can build upon our innovations. We continue to make all NASA data publicly available and welcome public participation using our data. As NASA admin Jared Isaacman has said, there are certainly things he's come across in the job that he can't explain, but they relate more to unnecessarily costly programs than they do to extraterrestrial life.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, and I'm struggling with which presidents and what dates. I know JFK came forward and expressed an interest in wanting to learn more about the UFOs.
Alleged that part of his assassination was because he was going to reveal the truth.
Now, I think a lot of the presidents, to the point, are probably left out of the loop of a lot of that stuff.
Well, I think for the people who know the truth, you would want plausible deniability, right? So if you never tell the president, he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Now, if you remember Reagan's big push about Star Wars and all that, I believe he even told, was it Gorbachev? Like, look, if the aliens attacked, would we be allies or would we continue to fight?
Yeah.
So I think Reagan wholeheartedly believed in aliens. So there's no telling.
There was another president, and I'm struggling to try to think.
Well, I can tell you, Nixon.
They took him out to Roswell area to see what was there. I can't remember the story of it.
Supposedly Nixon showed bodies to Jackie Gleason.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of presidents since then who have been involved in this at some level or another.
But it always makes me wonder. I'm sorry. It's the smoke and mirrors. It's like, if they are divulging this is real, what really is going on? Look over here, don't look over there.
Well, my headline is a non-typical headline because this is a non-typical episode.
I didn't even do a headline for this.
Well, I did. Well, okay, let's just roll into that.
Let's roll into your headline.
It's not really a headline so much, so let's just skip that part and just say that's part of my story then. Not really a typical headline. But these are the words of Carol Rosen, which I may have done before on the podcast, but I felt they fit right here pretty well. She was the first female corporate manager of Fairchild Industries. Now, she worked closely with Wernher von Braun. If you know your history, Wernher von Braun was a Nazi scientist who worked on rocket technology. He came to America as part of Operation Paperclip and was instrumental in the early days of the U.S. space program, the Apollo rockets and things like that. I mean, almost, I believe in some cases he's the father of the American space program in that way.
Right.
But he sort of led those efforts to get the U.S. into space. So now these are her words. This was from a video released on October 11th, 2013. Wernher von Braun taught, in fact, when I met him in 74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, the whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now, at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against the asteroids. We're going to build space-based weapons, so it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card, and over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card, and remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against the aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. A lie. We have moved in our lifetime through every one of those up unto aliens. We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But the Russians
were
right
on
enemy.
The cuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the Russians were the enemy when we were kids.
And I've learned a lot of recent research. I think the reason why we hated the Russians so bad is because they beat us to space and they were beating us technologically.
Yep.
Yeah.
After September 11th,
it
was the terrorists. After the terrorists, it was Afghanistan, it was Iraq, Iran,
Al-Qaeda's,
these third world nations.
Yeah.
And then it was asteroids. We got to be ready for these near-Earth asteroids. We got to be, what was it, the Three-Eye Atlas and whatnot recently. I mean, and now we have the president saying, we're going to reveal the truth about aliens. I mean,
check.
If you believe in aliens, you don't believe in aliens. If Wernher von Braun was telling the truth, we've moved right through those steps.
Well, and Billigan and we were talking before we came on air. The things we have seen just in our lifetime. Both of us grew up, no surprise, a little bit of geek, a little bit of nerd. The conspiracy theory, all the conspiracy theorists have got such a bad reputation.
Well,
when we were growing up in school, it was bad, but I mean, there was a time frame when it was just like, you're a bunch of quack nuts.
Well, you didn't have the forum of the internet.
Yeah.
And so if you heard a story and you and your friends talked about it, you didn't know how many people believed it. The internet made you aware that like, oh, these things were much bigger deals. And to go back, yeah, like we were talking about, so many of these theories have been vindicated lately.
Yes.
I think we've even talked in one of our earlier episodes. Oh, when we were doing the Lizardmen, and we talked about the secret cabal of government and world's powerful people that were doing all this horrible stuff. But now we're finding out the rich and elite do terrible things.
Yes.
And have been getting away with it for a long time. There's potentially evidence that the government could have stopped September 11th. I mean, a lot of these things that people believed.
The whole Epstein, all of this is just like...
It's so crazy. Yeah. It's so crazy that a lot of these conspiracy theories are turning out to be true. And I don't know. It's not very heartening, I'll tell you that.
I will say one thing, and I took this to heart, and I think I shared this with you. I had a guy come up to me, and he listens to our podcast, and he said, when I first started listening to you guys, he goes, I thought you were a bunch of quack conspiracy theories. And I mean, that really, that hit deep. And we had a short conversation, and we had almost the same conversation that he and I had. And he's like, but I kind of dig it. But he goes, kudos to you guys for putting yourself out there. And then I'm thinking, okay, so do we have, I know we got some great loyal fans out there, but do we got those groups that's just like, these are a bunch of quack conspiracy theorists living in their mama's garage or whatever?
Well, and the thing is, and I'll say this in all honesty, I don't believe most of the things we talk about.
Right.
I'm
probably
hopeful,
more trying to believe more so than you.
I'm hopeful for certain things.
Yeah.
But do I believe a 10-foot lobster attacked a man in Nova Scotia or whatever? Not necessarily. Could they be out there? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
Do I believe in the time travel stories? Not necessarily. They're neat stories.
Great stories. And that's another part of the podcast is we're storytellers. Yes.
Well, in the Y-Files, he presents the story and then he goes back and says, well, here's maybe why it's not true.
Yeah.
I think we do something similar. Like we tell the story, but there have been stories that we've done where it's like, oh, this was absolutely proven to be a hoax.
Right.
Or, could that have happened? Well, there's a lot of people that say it couldn't, whatever. I don't believe that there are monsters in the world that don't look like people. Let's put it that way. But at the same time, I mean, if it was real, that'd be awesome.
It's all your definition of the word monster.
Yeah. But, I do believe that
if there's a giant shark, and I'm not talking megalodon, I'm just saying a huge giant shark that's bigger than anything else. To me, that's a monster.
Well, I do believe in life after death.
Hmm?
So spirits and ghosts, I'm inclined to believe that kind of thing. I do believe that there has to be extraterrestrial life out there.
Absolutely. I am steadfast on that.
Arrogant to believe that this is the only planet where it can happen.
You took the words right out of my mouth. How dare they make such a huge universe and us think we are the best there is and we're all that there is?
I do believe the governments are involved in a lot of shady crap.
I am coming more so to believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
I heard it all my life.
Do I believe in the Snallygaster? No. Do I think there might be a giant hairy monster running around in the wilderness of North America, but I have never seen proof of that,
I believe in giants. I think they exist.
Well, and again, like we do at times sound a little crazy when we tell these stories. We tell them as if they're real because that makes the story work.
Yeah.
If we didn't...
Even on the Y-Files, he's tried several different things and progressed through the years. And he started off his recording, I think it was in 2020, the worst absolute time. But yeah, he gives the story and then he'll now at the end of the video or podcast, he'll be like, but how much of it is true?
Yeah.
I watched an interview with him, and he goes, you know what? That's where probably about 75% of my watchers turn it off.
Well,
They don't want to know that. They are tuning in to listen to the story.
Well,
I thought that was interesting.
yeah. And again, like when you do research for one of these topics, you're going to find like, okay, here's the story. This is the origin of Bloody Mary. And then this is why it's all bunk. Or, here's the origins of Santa Claus. And this is why the story of, Santa being related to Odin probably isn't true and all that.
There's a lot of stretches.
But again, it's the story of it. I like the stories.
Mhm.
If every story we did was true, this planet would be overrun with monsters, aliens, and ghosts and murderers. And, we have to just settle for just the murderer.
Yep.
So, and as we get to the end of this episode, we talked a lot about it in this episode. It's time for us to reveal we've been AI the whole time.
It's true.
No, there's enough emotion in our voices, I would hope, to make that obvious that we're not. But
And on that note, I will say, as I go and I try to listen to more podcasts and things, that's one of the biggest turnoffs for me. It'll pop up, hey, love the tagline, trying to get you,
yeah,
love the image, and you go into it, and immediately when it starts off with like, today we will study the interludes of the galaxy of, it's like,
well, and every commercial has the same voice.
Yeah.
It's that same AI, like, oh, I've heard him a million times, and he sounds like he's a person, but
he sounds like
not.
a believable dude.
Yeah, no, we are AI free. I even had an idea at one point in time to do like an AI summary that I would read at the end of an episode, but I was going to do it in a humorous way to show how silly AI could be.
Yeah.
We are AI free.
AI free.
I don't use AI for anything.
We took
it
that
on the podcast.
We took that vaccination.
Yeah.
We hope that you've enjoyed revisiting and reminiscing with our 200th episode of Nightmares on the Lost Highway. We have struggled from the beginnings. We've struggled a little bit recently.
Always struggling.
It's always a struggle. Quite honestly, we're still to a point we haven't made a dime off of this, but we enjoy doing it. And apparently there's a few of you, at least a few out there that enjoy listening. Maybe some of you just enjoy listening to a bunch of quack hillbilly conspiracy theories. Well, that, as someone once told me, is also art. Art, if it makes you feel anything, then we've been successful, dang it. Whether you're laughing at us, cheering us along, or throwing stones trying to run us out of your town. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for listening to Nightmares on the Lost Highway.
Hey, real quick, call to action. I think Eric would agree. We'd like to grow this Nightmares on the Lost Highway.
Absolutely.
If you could, if you're listening on Apple, if you would go and give us a review and rate us. If you have some feedback, that's fine too. Whatever platform you're listening, follow us, rate us, give us some reviews. That helps get some recognition and gets our name out there.
We do have a Facebook page, Nightmares on the Lost Highway. You can easily find us if you want to communicate with us. If you want to share some possibilities for future podcasts with us, reach out. We want to talk with you guys.
I want to take a time to thank the people that helped bring this all together. Alex Tudor, you can almost call him our producer at this point. Sarah Tudor, who also helps with some of the technical stuff. I want to take a moment to extend thanks to Eric for letting us use his space to record in, kind of our makeshift studio.
I, in turn, would like to thank Bill for, one, putting up with me and using this camaraderie to do something we both very much love and enjoy doing, and thank Bill's family for allowing him to spend all the time to work and clean up our recordings and present them in what you hear in the final terms, the final edition, if you will.
And I'd like to thank all of you for continuing to listen. I know we've got some loyal followers out there. We do this as a labor of love, but we're happy that there are people that enjoy it hopefully as much as we do.
Thank you very much.